Today I will present you a challenge I had personally and how we conduct it. And the idea is that at the end you will see how we did it, but my reason is to give you some sense of how that means within the organization to fully use team cognitive load as a metric to measure impact and why we need to measure impact from platform teams. So I am Aleix, having CPTO at Temperature. I was also like a Team Topologies value practitioner, and I'm running stuff about engineering strategy. So what I want to start with is some definitions. So only that we agree about what I'm talking about today, which is the cognitive load. I will refer this as a cognitive load burden. And the idea is that I always be talking about team level. I will not be talking about individual level. And then when I talk about overload is when the combined group exceeds the cognitive demands. When usually you will find this like a burnout or like I don't know what I'm doing sometimes, and it's too hard to keep all the context in my head. So that's the reason or how I think this is a good metric to understand how the platform teams are doing, and we will see some examples later. So let me give you some references about things I will be using during all the presentation. And this is the definition I want to give you, which is like, for me, the platform team as how we will understand during this conversation will be about building and maintaining internal platforms. It will not be a platforms about exposing that to other businesses. I will be talking mainly about internal platform teams, okay? That will be our scope. And based on Team Topologies definition, it will be about reducing cognitive load or building more speed, and they will be providing a set of self-serve capabilities, standard tools, and infrastructure. So this is the area we will be talking about. Some examples that may or may not apply to you. It's like internal development platform teams, front-end platform teams, anything platform team. This is the area that it will be impacting you during this talk. So if you are within some of the teams or your company have some of those teams, I hope that this conversation will help you. So when I will talk about this kind of team, like a streamlined team or product team, if you are a blind person, this is like the one with rounded corners. It's like product teams that talk to customers, okay? I will be using the blue one for platform teams with these raw edges. So you know that the platform teams are the ones in blue when I use them. Other things that you will need to know is that X as a service means something as a service, like an internal something that you provide. And this is what it means that the platform team offers something to a streamlined team or a product team. These are the main things that you need to know, as well as collaboration. This means that the platform team collaborates with some streamlined team to shape like a product or whatever, and then provide that as a service. Why in that direction? Because you will see that on the left side, there is like ideas, and then flow goes by onto the end. So the idea is that the information flows in this way. That's the main thing you need to know during this talk. The rest, it will be more about experience. So my experience here I will be talking is about, I was head of engineering, and we started leveraging cognitive load for strategic platform investments. These started some of this before I joined, and some was something I led. So it's a combination of both. But it was quite interesting to understand cognitive load as a way to understand how we can impact multiple teams at the same time. So I joined Creditas. Creditas is a Brazilian fintech, very big, multiple products, multiple product lines. It was about giving credit to people in some different ways. So only that you know how many product lines we had like 5 main product lines by the time I joined, and everything was based on credit. Mainly main thing is that we were providing. In terms of size, this is quite relevant, is this amount. We were, when I joined, 3,000 people. By the time I ended, we were 4,000 people. And the important part is that we had around 350 product tech people there, and around 40 product tech teams. So the size was good enough that we have enough scale problems about how we communicate as different people. So when I joined, Creditas was growing by merchant acquisition. Merchant acquisitions are complicated in multiple levels. We will talk about the tech part of this, which is we start buying companies. And companies come with different infrastructure, different languages, different everything. And this caused that integrating or adopting the teams within our ecosystem or infrastructure become super tedious for the sysadmin people or the DevOps people, okay? So interesting part is that we start measuring, or in this case, they start measuring before I joined, is to reduce the lead time between we acquire a company and that services are available within our infrastructure. That was the main pain at that time. So if you ask any person in business, they will always tell you, it's too much, I want this tomorrow, right? So let's go into how we start building this. So what happened is that we had an ops team, they did everything, we configured everything infrastructure-wise, and then hand over that to the product team. So what happens with this approach is that the ops team is the bottleneck. They just started doing this by themselves because the amount of nuances at the infrastructure level was too much. So the ops team, in this case, I will call them ops team, were burnout. They had too many things at the same thing. Like each service is different. The custom Terraform for each service, they need to make it tailored for that a specific service. We have a lot of duplication. We have code duplication. We cannot repeat ourselves. So how you make their life easier? So they start doing this initiative. We wanted the time for the first deployment to be as fast as we can, and the only way we can do this is by enabling others to do that on top of us. And that's exactly what they did. They started to behave as a platform team, where instead, so they started to behave as a platform team, where the main idea is like how we can make this sooner. So they started to understand, okay, we have some Fargate things, some Terraform things, the others are random. If you're lucky, they are on cloud. If you're unlucky, they are in internal racks. And then they decided to offer some internal infrastructure as on top of Kubernetes. It was a combination between Kubernetes and then some abstraction of top it. And this is how they start doing it. Instead of they deploying the services for you, they start offering the clients or the SDKs or whatever, so you do this for them. And that enable that instead of doing these handovers, they start like enabling others to do it by themselves. This looks amazing from a platform team level. They succeeded a lot. So time for the deployment is no longer a pain. The amount of service running on Kubernetes, almost 100%. You can deploy fast. The lead time for deployment is 10 minutes. Everything goes good. Side effect of this is that, or the consequences are like the system level metrics are great. The platform team cognitive load is reasonable. I think platform teams never get good. They always overload in so many terms. But we were succeeding. So what happens when you start deploying a lot is that now the time between the thing is accessible within the infrastructure into you start adding improvements to the product becomes the bottleneck again. So just imagine that before the bottleneck was ops team. By the time you receive a service, maybe it takes months. It gives product teams time to learn the code, learn this, learn how to test. If all of a sudden you get new 10 services in one day, there is no way that you can understand everything, right? So now the platform team is great, but the product teams were suffering. So we kind of changed from merchant acquisition approach to grow the product ecosystem, and we love as the developers to everything is a bounded context, everything is isolated. But business is not like this. It's like, oh, I want to integrate everything with everything else because it's the combination of everything what gains value. And that was costly to understand how to integrate everything. But plus, when you merge an acquisition, some people leave. So the knowledge is also lost. So making this as part of your day-to-day as a product team was very hard. So the burden became how we can operate systems in the Kubernetes ecosystem. And operating systems, remember at the beginning, we had e-commerce, marketplaces, benefits of the companies. Each of them are very different to each other. There's not like a recipe about how to improve the operating, right? It needs to be specific to the business. So when you start talking to any developer within the company, they start saying, this work feels pointless, can I speak up about this issue? Requirements keep changing. It was a total chaos. So the thing is like, okay, how we can improve this? So we start measuring somehow cognitive load. We can see cognitive load as a pain as well. Sometimes I use that as a synonym or the same thing. But we understood that the running the systems were good. I thought that the testing was a problem. It was not. Integration with third parties was kind of a problem, but operating was a real mess. So, okay, it disappeared. The cognitive load problem were more, now it appeared, great. It was like, we don't know how, we get into 1.2 microservices per developer. We had almost 4,000 microservices running for a team was 300 developers at some point. It's like more than one microservice per person. How the hell we get there? It was hard to debug production. It was a distributed monolith at the end, like everything is connected with everything. And when there is certain services that when this fail, everything fails in cascade, right? So try to understand why something happened. Very hard. Monolith fixing, and at the end is a distributed monolith. That's how we understood the pain, which is also known as cognitive load, that people had all of the thing in their minds. So the company needs evolved, and the product team needs also evolved. But the thing is that the platform team didn't notice this, because the system level metrics said everything is good. Indeed, when you have a lot of microservices and they are distributed, because every change touches multiple services at the same time, the thing is that you have better DORA metrics because you are deploying even more. So it's like the system auto-reinforced itself. So as a foundations, I will call them foundations teams, like they are providing the Kubernetes platform and a lot of services, but I will call them foundations team, keep improving the same metrics. The thing is that we tell them, hey, this is a problem here, how we can solve it. So we had, let's start measuring. So they start adding, again, tooling. And the thing with tooling is that if you don't understand the problem, it becomes not the solution. So what happened is that we kept adding tooling. We started with New Relic, or the other way around, and then we migrated to the Datadog, or the Datadog to New Relic. It doesn't matter, but we keep adding tooling and migrating and doing hard migrations all the time. But they failed again. And the interesting part is like, before, we had system metrics. Now we have operating system metrics, which said everything is going through the platforms, everyone is ingesting data, people are using it, they have some failures, but looks like the adoption is great. You go back to cognitive load and they say it's a problem. It still doesn't solve it. So the reason of that is that compared to the first scenario that the ops team had all the knowledge about the pain, they were able to provide the solution because they knew the pain. In this case, they didn't know about how to operate the thing. So that is how people were using the infrastructure. They ignored New Relic, Datadog, the Elastic Stack, everything. And when you ask a developer how they do it, it's like, oh, we get a bug report. I go to Amazon CloudWatch. It says 2020. CloudWatch experience. Did you use CloudWatch sometime? It was very bad. I think now it's improving, not much, but it was very bad at that time. So they were doing this manually because they wouldn't know how to use traces. People were adding logs manually, console log or logging everywhere, and then new service deployed. We identified that the majority of service deployed was not about new features, but adding logs, the main majority. And what happened with this is like, of course the system metrics looks green because people were deploying a lot fast about console logs. So if we don't understand how people are using our systems, we are creating the wrong tool for the wrong solution. And then at some point, things get fixed. Remember, distributed monolith. It means that you add logs in 3 services at the same time and you deploy. So this was the recurring problem. So compared to how we run systems, the foundations didn't have the experience to operating the products. And it was not fair to ask them to know this. Because it's, as I said, imagine that the foundations team needed to know how people use all the products everywhere. This is not possible to make something tailored to the specific domain, because if its domain behaves differently. So, systematic looks good, platform team cognitive load is reasonable. They still didn't have too much to this, to manage all this operating overload. But the product teams struggled to keep everything as the business new needs were coming to us. And platform teams lost visibility of their impact. This is the problem, is that the systems tell you you're great. The human problems say like you are not doing great because you're not solving my problems. Remember, platform teams solve product teams' problems and they were not solving the current ones, right? So this is the thing. How we go back to the platform team goals or why they are alive as a team, right? So this is the main thing we wanted to go back. So they started great. They started with pains. They secreted systems, and we kind of forgot the know-how. We needed to start again. So how we did that was we start managing or asking about cognitive load. And this was very key, because if it's one team problem, then it's very hard to fund an initiative. Then we started to find patterns of cognitive load problems in different ways. And the problem was how people operated. So the operation, it was not about how I do a log. It's about, I first need to understand the domain. We need all of us agree on the solution. Probably the person that make a decision about the business is not within the company. So you need to go back to the code and understand why everything is done in that way. And you also have resiliency problems because everything is failing. So that is how the cognitive load assessment helps us to go in this direction. So in assessing the cognitive load, this is, okay, better. So assessing the cognitive load, it gives us two things that we didn't expect, which is like, first, we had a unified view and shared out about the team challenges. Because this is very interesting. People kind of blame what we know. So people were blaming the tooling. Oh, it's the tool the problem, it's the tool the problem. What happened in reality is that sometimes we blame Jira. And then you go to Linear, or to Trello, or to Asana, and you keep changing the tooling, but the problem stays. And when you have a shared understanding about what is going on in cognitive load, you identify that, oh, it's not that I have a bad ticket tooling, it's that I have 10 stakeholders changing my requirements all the time. So people were unable to tell you what was happening to them. People were telling where they felt the pain, which is becoming the tooling. So we kind of expanded the language of where people can express where they have the pains. So we move from each team reporting a unique problem, and as a head of engineering, if everyone has a different problem, how you help them? It's like no way you can invest in an initiative that impacts multiple people in the same time. So you have a hard to invest across multiple team impact, and by creating this using cognitive load and creating this shared language, we were able to express a shared problematic, and then we were able to invest in something to improve here. So that is what we start doing. If the foundations team cannot give you anything because it's too much, how we can do that? And what we did was investing in tribe-level platform teams by a business unit. So here the problem or focus was, if we invest in a platform team and only one, it collaborates with one product team about their problems, we will start adding the know-how into this platform team. The platform team was formed by previous people in those teams that they had the problematic, they knew the business problem, and we had people specialized in making this happen. So it was a combination of both areas, because if you add people in that team that doesn't know the pains, it will only add more delay on the solution. So we added key people in each team into that platform team. It was 4 developers team, and they collaborated during some months, and then at the end they provided us a platform specific for the business unit. And that helped a lot. So we made some system level metrics like time to resolve an issue, number of issues reported, number of 500 errors. That was nice as a system metrics. But we started as well collaborating with the cognitive load. Because if we give you a platform, but the platform is very bad, we force you to use it, you will say like, okay, I'm using it, but it's ruining my life. I know how many of you happened that you're forced to use a platform, yes or yes, and it's even making your life even harder. How many people went into that solution? Okay, sorry, that happened. Yeah, so. This is interesting. When we force people to use an internal platform, we lose feedback. Because the good thing is that you're doing a bad platform and no one is using it, then it's a great feedback, because it means that it's not solving a real problem. But when you're forcing it, and it's making people's lives harder, and you're not measuring cognitive load, you are decreasing all the speed everywhere. So it's very important to combine both, right? So this is something we also learn. So the interesting part is that the people that collaborated improved the cognitive load huge. The people that I start using later, it improved, but not at the fullest. And the good thing is that the people that didn't use the platform were having a still high cognitive load. This proved, and this is why it's important, that the platform thing had a good outcome or a good impact within the teams. And this data was key for keep investing on the team. So we start seeing that this pattern worked well, and we went from a tribe level to organizational level. We start making this at all the organization, because we want to find patterns like, can we replicate this? more people is suffering from this, you have questions as a head of engineering or VP of engineering or CTOs, like how can we solve or help more developers to go faster? And that's what we did. And we found that in the foundations team succeeded in running. No one had problems on that area, but yes, in some others. This is some oversimplification of the results, but I think you get the point of why this was important. So we started replicating the success. So instead of aiming for a full platform teams that, for all the organizations, those were very big. We went for located platform teams for the ones that needed it, right? So this was key, like, because we tend to invest a lot upfront about platform teams, and their backlog is huge. If we started locating the things near to where the problem is, the impact was higher, and the nuances were better. So that is what we started to replicate. It didn't work for everyone, and it's fine. I think only 2 or 3 types copied this approach, and the rest continued as the previous way. Fine for me. The thing is that you need to have the impact that you expect, right? So it's better to not force, but open for adoption, and if it works, then you continue. So with a cognitive load, we were able to answer 2 questions. Why should we invest in a platform, and why should we keep investing in a platform? And in our case, we didn't depend on the data teams, because data teams were very overloaded. We were unable to ask them for anything for help, so we moved more into how we can be, as a leader, self-sustained and not depend on other teams, because then the delay is higher. But let's focus on the first 2 answers. When we went to business and say, hey, we will invest 4 people into a team, they say, okay, why? Because I have these business initiatives that are more priority. How this will help me? And if you make the change of adopting a team and you can measure it, you make the decision easier to revert. Because if you start a platform team and it doesn't work, you can move back. But it depends on the organization. Sometimes organization, when you create a new team, is very bureaucratic. You need a lot of approval. If you reduce the effort of creating a team or destroying a team, it makes things easier. But this question about why should we keep investing on this kept coming each quarter. I have people there. I want to put them into the product teams because business priority, we don't have people, whatever. And this is our responsibility as leaders. It's like, when people ask you, like, why should I keep investing there, you should have some good arguments about why. Because otherwise, and we will see this more often, how many people are by layoff, and then what the first thing they see is like, okay, these people are not in frontline product delivery. Let's move them back there. And we know the consequences when you start destroying all this support infrastructure or supporting teams. Things become messier. So we need data to prevent these decisions. And this is the key. What we start doing is we start observing the organization through cognitive load, and then you see the different teams going up and down, because cognitive load is very seasonal. Don't compare cognitive load from one team to the other team. They are peers to apples. You cannot compare them, but you compare the trends. And then you start making decisions, like, okay, let's have here a platform team. After some months, you can see the consequences. And if people ask you the question like, why investing there? Because you are improving already what they want to improve. And then decide to remove a team, here 2 outcomes can happen, which is the cognitive load doesn't go up and the system levels keep good, then you didn't need the platform team. But if you need it, it will show here. And then if you can revert the decision and recreate the platform team, everything good. So if we're able to reduce the cost of this decision making, you can have better arguments about why something works. And sometimes you need data to prove why you need the team. I had an approach about resisting to destroy teams a lot, but some people really are very pushy on that direction. So why I opted in is saying, hey, let's try it, 2 months, let's see the consequences. And now the good thing is that sometimes these decisions have names, and people say like, oh, you decided that, this is what happened. Do you want to revert your decision? Like, yes, let's go back, because now we see the consequence. So it was very powerful decision making about showing trends, about how leadership decisions impacted teams' performance and team cognitive load. So this is where I want to go into. It's like team cognitive load provides a faster feedback loop on leadership decision making in some degree. It can help you as a platform team because it gives you information if you are solving real platform team developers problems, but as a leader, it also helps you a lot. And the thing is that, or why I'm doing this, is like I was a developer and I decided to become frustrated as a manager forever. So the thing is that I have a lot of tooling. I had testing, CI/CD, monitoring. My feedback loop as a developer is seconds, minutes, or hours. I don't think we're very fast. But as a leaders, how is your feedback loop on your decision making? It is maybe you're having one-on-ones, retrospectives, meetings, NPS surveys, if you have them once a year. So the feedback loop goes from weeks to months, more months than weeks. So interesting part here is like if you can decrease the time as a leader to understand the consequences of your decisions, you can interact faster as either with platform teams or other approaches. So I don't know if you, who has the role of leader here? Okay. So how many times happened to you that you make a decision or the organization make a decision, and because of the reporting level, the time that it reaches you, everything is on fire, and it's very hard to revert. So that is what's happening to us. So I was head of engineering. So what happened is that then I had engineer manager, tech lead, and then the team or seniors, right? So just imagine, there's a decision, people try. When the people believe that this is not important, then bring that into the retrospective. Lucky you if it's only 2 weeks. We could talking at least a month. That goes into the retrospective. The tech lead what does, tries to solve it themselves at the team level. It doesn't work. 1.5 months, 2 months. Then it raises that into the one-on-one with the engineer manager. And then if the engineer manager understands that this is enough important, then it reaches you, luckily, within 3 months. So we started to use this as well, like, okay, we invest in this platform team, we invest there, we invest there, and then we can see the consequences of what happens at the team level without all the needed human collaboration to reach the problem to the people with decision-making on that area. So this was key. So start understanding cognitive load as a way to see how your decisions or your company decisions impacts people, and instead of waiting to everything is a problem, intervene earlier, right? This helps you a lot. So, and we're doing fine. How do we measure this? So there are 4 approaches. The first 2 are either you hire a person that knows how to do that for you, that is the faster, but you can also have an internal developer team that does that for you. This is very common, like banking, big companies, Shopify also does this. This has been done for a while. So if you have those teams within your organization, probably they are doing it already. So just leverage that collaboration with you. And this is how we did it, which was about custom surveys every 1 to 3 months, depending on how fast you want to go, and then through retrospectives. And was the combination of both 2 that give us all the sensing, and then some tailored meetings. So what happened is that the NPS, compared to the cognitive load, compared to context-specific metrics, is that it's the only one which is time validity. It applies to everything you are. On the context side, we have the context-specific metrics. And the thing is that because the business changes, sometimes those metrics become invalidated, but you don't realize that, and that you can keep using them for the wrong context. And I found that, well, NPS is not actionable. People say like, yes, okay, what do you do with this information? But for example, on the context-specific, it's very actionable. So it's kind of the opposite. And the cognitive load for us became like the nice spot. It was valid for enough time, like 6 months, 1 year. We didn't improve it beyond that because, again, companies change. They were enough actionable because it gives you some area of focus, but you need to always speak to people because metrics doesn't tell you the full picture. You always need to go through specific people, right? And then you don't need much customization, but the effort for us as a leaders were huge. At least for me, it was like before running a survey, it was 1 month of preparation, and then running the survey during 2 weeks, and then 1 week of collecting all the data and doing all the surveys analysis. It was very huge on us. We didn't have the support of another team or data team, that's why. So the thing is that, can we do it better? So the 4th area is, I did that, I want to do it better. So I read the cognitive load theory from John Sweller. That book, it's super dense. I don't recommend you to read this. And it applies to learning organizations. It applies to mainly universities and colleges, and doesn't apply to real work or real world scenario. Why? Because they say, hey, in order to do a test, keep everything fixed and maybe change the room a little. It's like, just imagine go to your boss is like, hey, froze all the company and we do a little test and then we will see everything works. Like, this doesn't apply. So it was very frustrated, like good theory, I don't know how to apply it. So that's why in this area, I focus more sometimes about pains, about developers with some guidance, and not that many about this theory, because it's very hard to make it actionable or put it into the world. But then I joined temperature. So temperature at the end is the result about measuring cognitive load at a scale. And why that works, I will go here first, because we have Laura Weiss. She's a doctor on organizational psychology. And she was able to make this happen for like, it was valid, it was actionable, no much customization needed, and the effort was made by the tool, right? So she was able to came with all these theories and create this kind of a product to do that. So this is really what you need to know, how to make a specific tool or specific survey that takes into account cognitive load to make it precise and scientific based. No way I can do this by myself, right? So I am very grateful that she did all the work and all the studies. So she combined 6 theories or 5 theories with multiple principles. You have the model there. It's quite nice to read. Half of it I don't fully understand it because it's not my specialty, but at least I like that it's based on some unscientific methods. So that this means that I can apply the cognitive load not only to compare to when I do it. This is specific to my organization, is that I can do that regardless of the organization because of the scientific methods behind. So that was quite interesting. So this translates into this area, and I will stay some time here, which is we have 26 drivers of cognitive load that affects you in your job, which means from team characteristics, from task characteristics, from working practices and processes, and work environment and tools. And what happened to us is that we all the time focus too much on tooling, but it's only one portion of everything that's affecting your teams. And what happened to us is that it was very interesting that people were blaming tooling and solution alignment, but the problem was team complexity, was role clarity. People didn't know what the role was. So the interesting part is when you open the language of people and say, now I can name what is happening to me, and instead of guessing or sometimes group thinking, if everyone complains about this microservice is in Java 7, then that's the problem, but really it's something else which is bigger. It really helps you to go into specifics. So I'm sure that you can relate on things like roles, composition, culture. Remember that member psychological safety? What happens when we detect that when people don't have member psychological safety, it shows in 2 ways, either in the survey or as a no response. Because when people don't have psychological safety, people will stop replying and stop engaging and so on and so forth. So how you can solve cognitive load if you don't have psychological safety? Hard. Start there, right? So it will be almost impossible to do anything. But it was very interesting. So what happened to us is we have a problem definition situation and team complexity. We had 10 stakeholders changing opinion each week and not agreeing on the problem definition. So that was causing all the cognitive load for us. And that's what the platform team also solved. Where they gave like, hey, let's find the nuances, let's define what is applying to everyone, and then you start changing as well at the team level how you collaborate with the business. And it was a combination of multiple things. So when you run multiple experiments and you're measuring the outcome at team level, human level, and system level, you're hoping for the best. So the thing is, like, if you start using cognitive load as a sense-making or not sense-making, like sensing what is causing some impact on your teams, you can know when you are like really impacting badly or when you are impacting positively. So it will give you a lot of information, and platform teams able to use this and say, hey, you see how I'm impacting the teams in these areas? we have value here. If you remove us and this goes up a lot, you understand that we had an impact here. So we need to start combining both. And that's why I want to close with this. It's like the platform team impact is socio-technical. Sometimes we focus too much on the technical aspect because that's what we use. But if you combine the system metrics with the human feedback, that's the main part, you will succeed a lot on these initiatives and able to show the impact of platform teams. And with this, I want to say thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoyed. Time for questions. There's a mic, great.
First of all, thank you for, is it working? I don't know if I can hear myself. Cool. Thank you for chat, really interesting. But I know that you defined cognitive load as something subjective to each one. You mentioned that we shouldn't compare between teams because, of course, your cognitive load is going to be much different than mine. But I was wondering, how do you actually quantify that? Is it a qualitative measure of good, poor, terrible, needs fixing, or is it a 0 to 100?
Yeah, it's the more generic one is Likert, which is 1 to 4, like good experience, bad experience, and then in 5. And then there is some people add some commands that also add some information. So it's the combination of both. Mm-hmm. But the beginning is only like, if the more generic is you ask question like, hey, do you have multiple stakeholders with different yes, and you know that this is start impacting. So imagine the full one, just imagine 3 questions or 4 questions per driver. This can be a lot. If you do the full one, people don't do the full one. You start more focused. And this helps to nuance the consequent. Okay. And I finish here because we do 3. Because if people do randomly or start lying, we detect that. So okay. That's the only
That was mostly
reason.
what I was going to answer. I was going to ask, sorry, if you use the cognitive load as a way to identify problems, or do you lead on the clusters and say, how do you feel about this specific aspect in the company?
No, it's question, and then from those questions, because they are shuffled in a way, they come back, and then we come with the drivers. And this is very interesting because usually the survey or the results that the cognitive load gives you the where you need to start talking, and not the solution or anything. Why we say that? Because, or at least what I say to people is, like, cognitive load is not about you measure it and then you as a leader, you do a meeting and then you decide for the team and then you implement something. That's not how it works. My frustration as a leader was the time it takes me to know what is happening, it's too much. If I can have the right conversations sooner with the right people, we will get into the right things. So for me, the cognitive load is about, here it's a problem. It will tell you the area to focus, but not the actual problem. You need to talk to people. But instead of talking to 100 people and then, okay, here's where I need to focus, what we want, or I hope that cognitive load helps you, is like, okay, this is the area I need to focus, so you avoid all the noise until get there. So that is how I suggest people to use this approach. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for the talk. It was really interesting. So how do you get people to buy in? Because I have developers who I'm responsible for, and they have features they need to implement, and there's deadlines they have to meet, and our customers want the feature probably yesterday, not tomorrow. So everything that takes time away from basically coding is always like hard to implement.
Here I was in a unique position, which when you have some, I guess, authority, you get attached to a role like head of engineering, that helps. I will be honest. I moved into management because I felt that I didn't have enough influence with the organization, so that's I moved. Because the thing happened in the rooms that as a developer sometimes we are not in, so you need to move in that direction. And I also have a support from my manager. She was an amazing VP of engineering. And when you have to tell product, let's slow down a little here because we will do these bets, and you will see the results instead of months, weeks. And your VP of engineering talks to the VP of product, and they agree on, okay, let's slow down a little. That helps a lot. So the thing is, like, you need to have the network of relationships within the company to be able to give people time for this. Because the survey, it will take you 20 minutes. But the improvement, it will take you days. So if you only have 20 minutes to run a survey to tell you are bad, and then you do nothing about it, I would say don't do the survey. Avoid that, because if you then know that you have a problem, but you do nothing as an engineer, that is like very frustrating. So you need to be in an organization that allows room for improvement, right? So, but it will depend on your organization, I guess. And then there are also some laws from companies, from governments, that sometimes there are governments or companies that are that big that making surveys, they needs to go through the council. And that's another problem. So sometimes you, because the environment or the legislation you're in, you cannot do that. That's also another reality. I didn't know that, but then I was exposed to these scenarios. Like, okay, I didn't know that there are some countries that protect what can be asked the people, which is, it's interesting too. And then it gets another problematic about using this approach. That's also true. But for the most of the country I work with, that is fine.
Thanks.
Yep.
Simple one. So before you shared that you started to reduce the size of the platform teams and spreading across different areas. No? From some perspective, to me, it sounds like almost platform team, let's say, is part of cross-functional team. We have devs, QA, front-ends, etc. Could we consider also that someone from platform team should be in any cross-functional team?
You mean like the people within the teams itself?
Yes, exactly.
I think the platform is born this way. I think that usually some people within the organization with sometimes more seniority or more eager to improve things, they start locally and start creating, how they call this in Spotify model, like, chapters. Chapters. Well, so the people that are shared between people, and they start co-creating something, and then from that people, for me it's an interim platform team that is not official, and then they move. Because then I see that some some product teams that are cross-functional, they start doing two things: improving the tooling sometimes, or creating some templates, and doing their work. And these people usually are the people that you want to have in a platform team. So for us, we had people that start behaving in that way, but because it's not official, they had to put their head in two areas. And then what we found is like, oh, this is the people we want. And they were only 4. This is another point I forgot to mention, which is by constraining the platform team size, we force them to only work on what is critical. Because an anti-pattern I saw is platform team of 20 people, a streamline teams of 3 people. That is, for me, the opposite. You want the platform team to solve what is key for the team at that point, but not more. Because otherwise, I saw this anti-pattern of, oh, I have the platform team, so they work like an else clause. Like, if I don't have capacity on my streamline team, then I tell to the platform team, you do it for us. And that, for me, is an anti-pattern. It's like, no, these people need to help you to do that faster, or with less cognitive load. That will be, for me, the approach. So constraining it so that they don't start redirecting they don't behave like a ticket for, oh, I need this, my team don't have capacity, please platform team do that for me. That will be the anti-pattern. So you're having, I see people like, I have been there and crying. So. That happens, yeah. And sure. Any other question?
Thank you very much for the presentation. In your experience, when you use the surveys, how do you use it in the organization? It was applied to globally to the product or to a specific area, as the platform team or other business teams, or also the final users?
This was only internal, and it was only within the scope I had influence. Because I don't want, as I said, you don't want to raise problems and then the people that need to solve them don't have buy-in. So we did mainly the survey to developers within the tribe. It was 45 people. And we included the platform team because, okay, the platform team takes care about teams' cognitive load, but who takes care of the platform team? So you also you also don't want to burn them, right? And something I think we missed was asking designers and product managers, because if you know that they are burned out, they are overloaded. If you add this, like, okay, why you are in this situation, sometimes we can understand better what is happening to teams. So my mistake back then was not adding these people within the survey, and then maybe filtering by role. Always, please don't go to the individual. Individual doesn't matter, it's always the team. So if you have product leader, product managers, and you have 3 across the tribe, group them the results, don't show the specific one, okay? So that is how we did it, quite local. Then the other tribes want to copy us, and then they did that in that level. And then we just collaborated to share patterns. At that level, we stop at our level. We talk people like, we are doing this, but we didn't aim to replicate that or force the replication. At the end, it became quite local, between 6 to 8 teams, and it was good enough. I think sometimes we aim to force this to scale at the fullest, and not everyone wants to go into that direction. So I prefer to be opt-in. Like, if you want to be part of this, join us, but I don't want to force people. At least I say, hey, at least reply to the survey because your situation matters. And otherwise, if you, for example, you have a team of 10 and you only have responses from 5, what ends happening is that you solve the life of these 5 people and you lose the other 5, right? So we tell, hey, it's important you reply. We reach a 90% response. We started with very low, but people said like, oh, the people that answered this got initiatives, had impact, now they have this solved. I want to be part of this. So if we didn't achieve that improving based on feedback, people say, okay, this doesn't make any sense, I prefer to just code if this will not impact my life. But because we were impacting, and most of the initiatives were like, okay, this is happening. Who wants to lead this? And then people suggested like, hey, I want to lead this. This helped them a lot to enjoy and then improve others. Plus, that is something we also did. If you are part of these initiatives, this is taken into account during the performance review. Hey, this people is doing an extra thing on top of their work, so we want to also reward this. So it was like a combination. Hey, if you want to show that you can lead this as a mid developer, we didn't ask people to be principal or senior. Anyone can suggest. We are with support, and then we had middle, like, hey, I want to become senior. Okay, we have this problem. Can you lead this? And if you prove that you can lead and collaborate with other teams, it means that you can become a senior. So we're like growing opportunities for people, and people were very aged to, okay, I want to do this. That's how we achieved this. But you need to give people time and a space from failing, because part of this was a lot of failures during the journey. So it was a combination. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you very much.
Thank you. 1 minute left.
Great talk. In one part, you mentioned disbanding a team to prove that the team is required and then bringing them back in. How do you manage the humans during that process? Because that could be quite demoralizing, saying, we believe in your team, we're going to take it away and see what happens. You've got any advice there?
Yes, it's very. The thing is involving them on hey, this can happen at any time. So being like, hey, you're here, we started this, but there is nothing that we will tell you that in 1 year we'll be here. So at least being transparent about what can happen. And when the question is on the table, saying, hey, this is on the table, you suggest, hey, it can happen. What can happen then? You will go back to the teams, and you will go back to the previous ways of working, which is like you collaborate, but you will not have as time as now. There is one book which is called Dynamic Reteaming from Haiti. I don't know how the surname, but talks about if the cost of moving people is very high, it comes with a lot of tension and what will happen to me, a lot of questions, like you have a lot of fear, can come fear, like why this is happening. But if you normalize that people can move between teams from quarter to quarter and you become more soft about this, people are like, okay, this can happen. So it becomes part of the culture. An example is that another thing we did is sometimes we merge teams. we move domains from one team to another. And part of this moving people from people is like, okay, one person suggests, hey, I want to move here, and then we allow people moving. It's true that some companies are very like, oh, it's my team, my developers, don't move them, right? I think that is very damaging. And we should do is like, okay, it's open this for people. Like, hey, you want to move? You want to move from a more back-end or mobile-oriented team to more front-end team. And then when you start, always with constraint, you cannot have an empty team, right? But just help people that this is normal and try it out, make it local. Start with the more senior people that are more or should be more mature, and then this becomes easier. So we are lucky that the people that formed that team were very mature, and people know that sometimes everything is temporal, and then accepted the change on that. So yeah, soft skills and so on and so forth. Yeah, I hope that I answered your question. Thank you. Looks like we are over time. I don't know if we can continue. I'm happy to stay here answering more questions off stage. If not, yeah, thank you very much for coming, and hope to see you on the live.